are back. Welcome to another couple conversations. We're getting better at this. I'm Tafiq. This is Jinji. You know us. What's up? So we sitting down for some breakfast Saturday morning. Uh, some little chickpeas and rice. Little cup of tea. You know, little cup of tea with the baby. Okay, so today we were talking about it over the week. Jinji had said something a couple weeks ago, and it stuck out to me. Kept it in the back of my mind as something to talk about. And she said, "Do you remember what you said?"
There's a lot of loss. There's a lot of death.
Yeah.
Like, there are like so many people that I know that are losing people. Like something is shedding or changing, or someone is leaving, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of loss going on right now.
And so I thought it was something good to talk about because loss is a part of life. Loss is going to be a part of our journey together. Loss is going to be a part of any family unit, and loss isn't inherently negative. So I thought it was a really good topic of conversation. Yeah, you can think about it as like loss of life, but the way my little sister put it when I was talking to her last night, she said it's more of she considers it more of a release as opposed to a loss. It's a release of something. So I really like that. So she calls it release. I like that. I'm actually gonna pick that up from her. Yeah, so I also felt this vibe that we're coming into a season of release, of loss. And a part of that is, well, statistics, right? So we have our boomer generation. For those of you that know, those are your some of your parents and those are your grandparents. They were born in the 50s, around that range, and they were one of the largest generations in the United States yet. And what's happening is, if you're born in the 50s, you're now approaching the end of life, right? So between now and the next 10 to 15 years, that generation is going to be gone. So there is going to be a lot of loss of life itself, but there's also going to be a lot of release of other energy and entities, and I'll go into that, I guess, a little bit later. But I'm curious as to your thoughts. Oh, he was about to start eating.
Um, my thoughts. I think you put it pretty well. I think that I like the term release. I often refer to it as a shedding when I'm not thinking of it in terms of someone passing away. Now, I don't think that the term, the structure like loss of life is accurate if we break it down because they've lived, and
Yeah.
in many cases people are saying, it is time,
Mm-hmm.
which is a more peaceful way, which is what we can wish or hope for in that regard. And so it's not, a loss of life, it's the end of a story. This chapter or this story has closed, and now I'm on to the next story, the
Mm-hmm.
next chapter. And I think there's a bit of selfishness, possibly not in the beneficial way, as you talked about it previously, for people to superimpose their desires on someone who is in that place or making that decision. Now, and that applies to things aside from someone passing away as well. It applies to decisions you make, or like the state that we're in currently, where we're in go mode. It's go time.
Yeah.
We're prioritizing a lot of very specific things, and we're releasing a lot of unnecessary or unfulfilling things. And with that, that can ruffle feathers, that can get people confused, that can even in times make us, sad or confused because there are things that we would like to be doing, but they're not necessary things because our ultimate desire and our ultimate goal is not aligned with those other things that distract us along the way. So we're in this state of
Release.
release and direction.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like we have to release all of the things that we might like enjoying or would rather be doing or whatever to kind of stay a focus like together. Yeah. And it's really hard because I guess those are the sacrifices that are always mentioned, right? Those are the sacrifices where people who have, I don't know, have a platform of some sort reflect on, and they're like, when I'm thinking back, it's like it takes a lot of sacrifice, and it's not a lot of sacrifice like, oh, I had to, you know, sacrifice this and that, and it's like huge lifelong things, but it's like no, it's a lot of sacrifices, but it's also a lot of little sacrifices, and I think well, I'm saying sacrifices, but a lot of little releases, right? Little losses, and oftentimes I feel like it's like releases of self, right? There's parts of ourselves that we have to release and let go, so that we can stay the course and stay the focus, and
yeah,
almost stay our purpose, right? Stay in the course of discovering our purpose by releasing all of these other little things,
yeah,
and you know with that, it's like, yeah, okay, so there's the loss of life or the release of life, the end of a story, right? That's the elephant in the room that nobody talks about. And then when all of a sudden it hits the family tree, it hits the family unit, it's like, oh wow, grandpa or grandma or great grandpa or great grandma is about to pass. They're about to release. It comes as a shock. And I think it's because the culture here doesn't, the culture of today in the society in which I've experienced does not speak to the inevitability of what that release actually is. Not anymore, or I don't know if it ever has, but I know in other cultures, it's revered. It's a special passing. It's a moment, and I think for our family unit, we're going to try to gear ourselves towards that. Not that we're going to put the release on such a high pedestal, but we understand that it is a natural course of life, and that release can occur at any moment. So we're not promised the next moment, which is why it's important to be in the moment with those that you care about and those that you're building with in the now. Right? Be selfish in the now
for the right reasons.
for the right reasons.
Some people are selfish in a way that's not even good for themselves. But I think you said that very well. Yeah, please talk about life and death and all of the above. I think that there's a lot more chaos and turmoil when it's not discussed and people are in denial you know, and it happens, but it's also a lot easier on every generation if we're just very factual about it and prepared, you know,
Yeah.
because and ultimately it's not about us in that moment. We all have stuff going on all the time. And that doesn't mean that those things aren't important, but in that moment, it's about that person who's about to make that journey. It's not about us.
Yeah, it's not. So, no, it can be a heavy topic, but it's only heavy until the topic is actually brought up, right? It's only heavy until
You know,
we create a natural practice of talking about a heavy topic, right? And we've been talking kind of like along this premise this entire time. The whole premise of this channel is to have these more difficult discussions, encourage these difficult discussions between us, wherever they may arise, whenever they may arise, so that the frequency of these difficult discussions can be mitigated long term, right? You'll just have them less and less because you've already spoken about it. You've come to a consensus, And if it needs to be brought up again, then a new consensus will be drawn, and it'll be easier to draw that consensus. So when you start talking about these heavy topics within your unit, within your relationship, and outside of it, it just becomes a normalcy. Another heavy topic that isn't necessarily along the lines of life and death, that isn't very much talked about but needs to be talked about, are finances, right? We've been told by people who run these businesses that, hey, don't talk about how much you get paid. It's like, well, why not? Why not? And don't talk amongst each other about that. It's like, well, why not? Because we are contractors, we're businesses in our own right as individuals. Even if we're employees, we're still representative of a business, which is why there's a contract. But whenever the topic of finances come up, people kind of tense up. And I think that's another release that we can start having within our own personal communities, and then otherwise, is to talk about these types of things, so that when our next generation comes into play, they ain't having such a hard time, facing what reality actually is. The inevitability of death, the elephant in the room, the inevitability of that release, and the inevitability that in some way, shape, or form you're going to have to survive on a financial standpoint. So it's like, just breaking down the barriers. You didn't eat this at all.
I'll eat after.
You want me to reheat it
You don't have to.
afterwards? What were you going to do? Eat it cold?
I don't mind. It's good. Um, yeah. Talk about money. Talk about your finances. Um, Especially in the workplace. I think it's important because if you really think about it, if your employer is in competition with competitors, wouldn't they want you to outwardly express your pay plan and how happy you are and how secure you are in that business?
Yeah.
If not, are they keeping secrets? Just ask those questions. And don't be shy about being honest with your friends or your family or, whomever. Just, oh, what did you spend on that? Or how much are you getting paid? It's
Yeah.
just something that should be a regular part of conversation. So when it comes down to seeking help or getting support or making sure you're on the right path or making sure you're being paid fairly, it's not a shocker or a surprise or a scary topic. It's something to get excited about, actually, in my mind. So,
Yeah. Very grounding in all aspects. I didn't. There's a whole nother caveat to this discussion, that I won't go into too much detail, but where a source of where this conversation is also coming from is, our personal experience around death, release, and why it's such an important topic to start talking about literally now, right? The concept of it should be started as early as possible so that it's not such a shock to the system. Jinji has experienced release of life in her personal life before she ever met me, and I have experienced it in a myriad of ways just by way of my career choice. So I went into the medical field. There's nothing but loss of life in that instance. So yeah, not to get into the details, but this is where it's kind of coming from, and why what we've experienced has brought us to a conclusion together that it's like, no, we need to talk about these things, and we should prepare ourselves, at least mentally and emotionally, for for a possibility, and then the inevitability, right? So that's it. I think we covered good ground.
I think we should also touch base on release in a positive way because we didn't really do that.
I
I
thought the
think,
whole thing was positive, but okay, go ahead. What's up?
well, yeah, I guess it wasn't, but inherently people tend to think like death or financial strain or whatever is a negative or a stressor. Yeah, you're right. It's not a bad thing. But also, yeah, bringing it back to the release of self that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
There are elements of ourselves that I'm sure we know that we're holding on to, or places that we've been stuck into, or stuck between, where it's kind of like your foot is in this door and in this door, or on this side and on that side, and you just need to pull that last bit of yourself through that door
Yeah.
because there are traits that are not serving you that you need to just let go of. And
Mm-hmm.
it's tough because it might be associated with, I don't know, things or people that you really, really enjoy. And ultimately, I just want to let everybody know that when you're focused on you, you're focused on your hard work, your success, and your winning. There's a reason why they say that it's lonely at the top. And now that doesn't mean that everybody that's been with you is not going to be there. But it does mean that, you're not at every party. You're not caught up on social media. You're not doing all these things that you might really want to do. You can't be in every place at once. And it takes your full attention to work on your goals. And the people that love you are still going to be there. The people that know what work you're doing and want to see you win, they're still going to be there. And if someone, scorches you in the process or isn't and doesn't end up being there, thank you for showing me who you are and who I need you to be in my life, whether you're in my life or not. Thank you for that. I'm glad that I was able to see that.
Mm-hmm. Wish you the best.
Exactly. No love lost.
Yep.
And then, those people you don't talk to every day, you don't see all the time, there will be a time where, okay, I worked hard, so now I do have the luxury of going to these things and being in these places and celebrating and being excited because I did the hard work and now I can rest and enjoy. And I will see you there at that party.
Yeah. Yep. No love lost. Wish you the best. Thank you for being who I needed you to be in the times that, we have spent. So, it's not a negative thing, right? There's nothing negative about it. It's all the perception of how you want to think about it. You know? How do you want to grow in your perception? I feel like we touched on the spots.
Yeah.
Think we can call it quits? I think so. So this has been episode 24 of a couple conversations. We were on a roll, on the road to Namek, on the road to 1 million subscribers. We just completed a really big project last week. So if you haven't already, please check that out. We'll put the link right here and I'll remember to actually put it. Instead of having us just sit there waving our fingers around. Gosh. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate y'all. Peace.
Bye.